Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is going to be a fun episode. If you're like me, if I'm a gamer, I love to know about cheat codes. And this gentleman is going to teach us some of the cheat codes to success and help us break through some of our self-imposed barriers. So I just want to thank my friend Tom. Thank you so much for coming on, my friend. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, even better because I'm with you. I love your energy and I love that lead in too. That was really cool.
Thank you. And it's true because I'm a big gamer because I play with my sons, and if there's a way I can get some way to break through, I'm going to do it. And I think a lot of us need somebody like you in our life to teach us this is the way you do it. Because your book, I've read your book now, going on my third iteration, and it's actually teaching me to break through mental barriers that I have. I call it imposter syndrome. So, and your book is truly amazing. So I want to talk about that. But tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, where you come from, and a little bit about your dad, which he's a national hero.
Yeah, thanks. Well, we had a good little conversation right before, and I was born in Fort Benning, Georgia. So where jump school is, a lot of the infantry down there. And I moved shortly after that, which I wasn't even aware of, but I was probably about 6 months old or maybe a year old. And we moved to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So I know you have a lot of veterans, and I'm sure there's several of them who know Fort Bragg, know Fort Benning. And my dad was an Army officer. He was sent to Vietnam early in the war. He was a young captain in the Army, had gone to West Point. And about a month before he was supposed to come back, and his family was growing. So he had me, 3 years old. I had a 2-year-old middle brother, and I had a 6-month-old brother who was actually born while my dad was in Vietnam. So my mom was pregnant when he went over there. And my youngest brother never met my dad because 1 month before my dad was supposed to come home, and I can still remember it. Actually, I can remember being in our house there at, actually we're living in Fayetteville, North Carolina, right off the Army base. And I was looking out the window and I saw a taxi cab pull up and I was all excited. I thought it was my dad. And I was telling my mom, and my mom saw it and she knew what was up. And obviously it was a devastating day for our family because it was an Army officer coming to tell her, this young 28-year-old young lady with 3 young kids, that her husband had been killed in Vietnam the day before. And so that really impacted not only my mom, but our entire family. And, in the military, and I know many of you are in the military, you know what this is like, right? Because you've had friends that have gone through it where their families were impacted. But what it made me do, and I really credit that with making me who I am today, or at least a big part of who I am today, it made me start looking at the world differently. And when you have something happen like that, the world's not black and white anymore. Because we all want this perfect little life, which is a fairy tale anyways. But when something as traumatic as that happens, you start, at least I did, I started looking at life and going, hey, I don't like this, right? Give me some other answers. And so that really got me exploring, like, what the heck is going on? Like, how can you succeed? And that's what the Breakthrough Code is really all about. But a lot of it came from this adversity that I faced at a very young age.
Now, I came from a very abused household. My mom was an addict. Now she's clean, thank God. But for me, my solace was reading. That's the way. That was my getaway. That was what kept me sane. So I know, going through a trauma at that young age. As you grew older, what became your solace? Were you a reader? Were you in sports?
Yeah, both. And then also just people that came into my life, which I talk about. The Breakthrough Code's a parable, right? It's not a true story in terms of a biography, but there's a lot of things in there that really happened to me or that I saw happen. Like, I had a great mentor, this person that wrote my mom a letter. When my dad died, he was considered a hero. He's the building that you go into, I mentioned to you at Fort Benning before your first jump, is called McCarthy Hall. He had a couple other buildings named for him. He was died very early in the war, maybe the 100th guy, but he died literally. He was an advisor to the Vietnamese airborne battalion, and they got ambushed, and they were all afraid, and he was the one that moved forward and literally ran through the middle to help gather them together and save some soldiers. And while he was doing that, he was mortally wounded. But one of the people that wrote, there's several people that wrote, I loved reading all the things when I got a little bit older that people had written. But one of the people that wrote was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Bob Woodbury, who I made a character in the book. And he literally did write our family saying how much of an impact my dad had on him. They were both young Army officers, and Bob Woodbury had jumped out of an airplane and his chute didn't open. And so fortunately he survived, but he broke a lot of bones in his back. And he wrote in the letter, because my mother didn't know who he was. He and my dad were friends when they were young lieutenants, before my dad even met my mom. But he talked about how my dad was the only one that every single day came to visit him at the hospital, and what an impact he made, and what a great friend. And so he wanted to help take care of us. And he had gotten out of the Army after 5 years and was a very successful Wall Street guy. And he had a big impact on me, the way that he reached out to our family, and he would send us, $100 at Christmas, which we had no money. So it was like a fortune. And just another human being that cared about us that much really impacted me. And so, like that, I was reading books on positive mindset and motivation when I was, 12, reading Dennis Waitley and Wayne Dyer. These are older guys, maybe you don't know,
Yeah.
but I was searching for answers. And then sports. I was an athlete. I played football was my main sport. I played some at University of North Carolina. So all those things. And on the outside, I probably looked pretty normal, but just like a lot of us, inside there was fear, there was anxiety, all these things going on. And of course, back then we didn't talk about it. So I just kept it inside. And since then I've learned how to let go of it and change my story.
So, but now as you're growing up, you have a brother,
2 brothers.
Yeah. 30 years, one of them 30 years in the military, in the Army.
The youngest.
So what was that like, knowing the dynamic of losing your dad? And then, over the 30 years, there's plenty of conflicts. And so not only are you guys a Gold Star family, but then you also have somebody that's serving. So it's 2 different dynamics. What was that like?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but having my brother, I don't know how much. My brother was 2 years old and brother's 6 months old. I don't know how much my dad dying, and that whole experience impacted them. I'm sure it did, particularly probably my 2-year-old. My brother's only 2. For me, though, it was pretty devastating. And being 3, what happens between ages 0 to 6? We're learning, right? We're not fully developed. We're learning to walk. We're learning what to eat, what not to eat, what to touch, what not to touch, where to go, where not to go. So how to talk. We're learning all these things. So the way that our biology works is that we walk around from age 0 to 6 in what's called an alpha state. It's a slower, meditative, almost like almost dreaming, but not quite in a sleep state. So we're super open to anything that's happening. And we absorb a lot of our parents' beliefs. So at that point in time, when my mom was obviously devastated and in grief and fear and all those things, I absorbed all that. And so a lot of my early life, I had tremendous fear of somebody else dying or me dying. I actually thought I was going to die young when I was growing up, for some crazy reason. I thought I was going to get sick and die young. And I had all these fears and worries, and life was tough, man. I mean, when you got all that going on, and I know a lot of the veterans have similar things, PTSD. I think I probably had some PTSD, honestly, not recognizing it. And I wasn't in a battle zone. But when something like that happens to you, it shakes you up so much that you get thrown for a loop. And so for a lot of years, I had fears, I had anxieties. And I learned that that's a story I was telling myself about what happened. Life's not fair. Life's a struggle. These were all beliefs my mom had too, I think. You can't ever get ahead. And I had to change those. I had to let go of the old story and create this new story. But anyone can do it. It's not easy, especially when you have trauma. It can be done. And so for anyone listening, I had a very challenging upbringing. My mom was awesome. I mean, she loved us, but she was a little bit broken, and she passed away even fairly young. I think a lot of it was because of her carrying that trauma, that story, without ever truly healing it.
So now you go to college, Tar Heel Nation.
Yeah, Tar Heel.
I'm a big Tar Heel guy.
Awesome.
But, so what did you go to college for? And is that where you learned to open up your mind a little bit when you started getting around other people?
Yeah, no, I mean, I always had friends, and I was relatively popular growing up because I was a pretty good athlete. I went to college to study something that I don't even use today. I was a political science major. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. And then I worked in a law firm. One of my relatives was a partner in a law firm up in Washington, D.C., and he was kind enough to have me intern for a summer. And that's when I realized I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to go to 3 more years of school. I wanted to get out and start doing things. And, so school for me, did it open up my mind? I'd like to say, yeah, I challenged myself. I took all these interesting classes, but honestly, the way I was going through school was super tactical. I was trying to get good grades in the easiest way possible and get a degree. And things I learned, the one class that did teach me something that I still use today was a speech class, right? I had this great professor. It was pre-law speech, and his name was Dr. Brandis. I still remember. He was old back then. I'm sure he's passed away a long time ago. But that was impactful because it put a little pressure on you. You had to stand up. You had to communicate. And now I do that for a living. So I think that was probably the one class that helped me out the most.
See, I got a 17-year-old son, and he just finished his class on public speaking.
Yeah.
If you can master that one skill,
yeah,
the whole world opens up to you. Because especially everybody's doing this. Everybody on their phone or email. So if you can just talk to somebody face to face, the world is your oyster.
Well, that one skill has made me, millions and millions and millions of dollars. Just so if anyone's ever thinking like, I don't like that, or I could never do that. I used to be that person that I could never do that. Like I failed miserably. I remember first time I stood up in front of a big group, and this was when I was in my 20s and I was involved in running Tony Robbins' company. He had me do an introduction to one of the seminars, and there was 1,000 people. Now he gets many more, but this is a long time ago. And I blew it. I totally blew it. I was humiliated. I was embarrassed. I wasn't humiliated by anyone else, but I just was like, oh my God, I'm so bad. I suck. And I remember thinking, I don't ever want to do that again. But then I also said, you know what? I got to get better at it. And so I worked at it, and I've actually become, it's one of my fields of expertise. I have a company that teaches people how to do that. We mostly work with big companies. And I've also written 2 books on that. The last one was called Win the Presentation Game, because I just look at it as a game. Most people don't know how to play the game though, Rich. And so they're playing in a way where they're just not going to win. And so I figured out how to win. And it's not that complicated. Now we've trained tens of thousands of people all over the world how to become better at that, because I do believe it's a master skill.
And, and I believe that, like whenever I go and do one of my talks, I always say, most of the people are not going to remember your name.
Yeah.
But they're all going to remember how you made them feel.
Yeah. Good.
And if you can touch their heart, say something that, like for me, when I first got involved with Mr. Robbins, I call him out of respect. It was because the story that he told when he gave the money to that child and his mother, because he's an empath and I'm an empath. Yeah. And I think, if people if you can, when you're speaking, touch somebody's heart like that, then they're going to listen to you for anything you say. Right.
I agree. Yeah, no, that's the most, we have this training on how to become a better presenter, and it's been super successful in all these corporations where typically they might have 100 classes or trainings that they offer people, and we as far as I know, every time that we're in a curriculum where they've always told us you're the top rated class, right? And I'm thinking, why? We work hard, we've got good content. It's not just me, I've got other people that work for me that go out and do them. But the number one thing in my company, we actually have we've got a mantra with 3 things. Number one is we always play big. And so when we go out there, it may be the 100th one we've taught in, a couple months, but we always step up. It's like, let's go, play big, be your best. So always play big. Number 2 is we eat pressure for breakfast. We know things aren't going to go right all the time, but we like the pressure. And so everybody in my company, they all, get in my company and stay here. You got to be someone who wants to play big. You got to want to bring some pressure into your life so you can really shine. And then the third one, and I think this is most important, is we spread the love. We make people feel good. Most people walking around on the planet today, they need someone to help them out in terms of feeling a little bit better about themselves. And so we get to play that role. And I think because we do that in our trainings just naturally, because we love people, we love them up, but they go farther, they take bigger risks because they feel valued. They feel the love coming from another human being, and they just go bigger.
All right, so let's talk about going big, because I just took my wife. We went on a another honeymoon to Vegas, and she loves Barry Manilow, and we go see Barry, and he's 75 years old. He's been performing for 40 years, and even though he sang that same song 40,000 times, he gives it all he's got, and you can feel it. He never mails it in. Yeah. And I think that's what you're talking about, is going big and showing people, okay, 1,000 people might have heard my speech, but maybe the one person is the first time.
Absolutely. I've done a lot of podcasts, but I want to be at my best on yours, right? I don't want it to be like, oh, okay, let's do another podcast. I want to be my best, and not necessarily for me, but for you and for everybody that gets a chance to see this. And I think in life we make a lot of excuses. Well, I'm a little tired, or I've been doing this for so long, I'm a little bit bored. Hey, it's not about us. It's about the people that we're impacting. And like you said, this will, for most of the people watching this, I'm sure it's the first time they'll ever hear my voice or see me. I want to do whatever I can to help them out. And I'm not that worried about them being impressed with me. That's not, actually, I don't have any worry about that, because it's not about me. I'm not on this show for me. I'm on this show to help the people that you can expose me to, so you and I together can lift them up and make the planet a better place.
Yep. Now, like I said before you came on, because you're coming on the show today, we're actually going to be giving away a pound of coffee, vertical momentum coffee. All they got to do is write coffee in the show, and I'll let them know how they can get it. So, and anything that I do sell on my show, including T-shirts, hats, coffee, mugs, everything, 22% goes to help veterans struggling with homelessness and PTSD. Wow. So I'm always giving back, kind of like you and Mr. Tony do. You guys are always giving back, and I think that's one thing that drew me to you, is you're more of an empath. I see that you're the kind of guy who sit down with have a cup of coffee. What that is? Can you hear me? Can you hear me at all? Can't hear you. I don't know what. I don't even know what that is. I don't